Hi, Kim from Yoga Formula here. I'm going to take you through a few movements as well as a breathing exercise to assist you finding more stability in the areas that tend to be affected by sitting all day. So we're going to start out by bringing attention to our breathing. So this may be a little bit different than something you've heard in the past. The aim is just to give it a try and notice what you notice. So closing the mouth, breathing only through the nose. And the aim is, without trying to change anything about the breath, see if you can settle into an easeful inhale and exhale through the nose. By observing the breath this way, we can start to notice more easily when the breath moves away from something easeful. So I like to start with just counting down from 5 with each inhale. So on the first inhale, we count 5, followed by an easy exhale based on how it feels in your body. The next inhale is 4, and then exhaling through the nose. Next time you inhale, we're on 3. So the aim is to work from 5 to 1, breathing gently in and out through the nose. No lengthening, no deepening, just noticing how the breath feels in and out through the nose. Next, we're going to bring attention to that concept of the core as a cylinder. So rather than just the core being muscles across the front of our body, we're expanding that view to include everything from just under the chin, around the back of the neck, down the front of the body, down the sides of the body, down the back of the body, all the way to the pelvic floor, or that group of muscles in between the 2 hip bones. So rather than just recruiting the front of the body, we have a whole cylinder of stability that we can bring awareness to and build upon to help support the spine and the rest of the body. So from here, we're going to take everything down onto the mat with the feet planted on your mat, noticing the back and how it feels on the mat. Knees are pointed up towards the ceiling, hands are beside you in a comfortable way. And we're just going to take notice of that breath in and out through the nose. So for a couple of breaths, just noticing how the breath is moving. Then we're going to bring our attention to the hips. And we're going to think firstly of the hip points, so that furthest area up the hips that you can feel before the hip turns back in towards the body. So see if you can find that for yourself. And then either keeping your hands there or just using that as awareness. And we're going to tilt those hip points up towards the rib cage and then away again. In the back of the body, this might feel like the lower back pressing into the mat, and then lower down the hips pressing into the mat. Hip points as a point to reference, so I'll continue to refer there. So we're just finding a gentle tilt in the hips, aiming not to let it come too far back up into the back, but just noticing how the hips are feeling. The next time the hip points move up towards the ribs, we're going to start to peel the back slowly up off the mat, lifting the hips up into an expression of bridge that feels relatively comfortable in your body. Think of pressing into the feet and lifting with the hips. We're going to bring our attention a little bit further up the body to notice where your ribs are sitting. So if your ribs are flared way up, see if you can shift them down slightly. And again, imagining that cylinder all the way from the pelvic floor up to just under the chin to support lifting the body here. We'll pause at the top for a breath and then slowly lower back down towards the mat. Once there, finding that hip tilt again gently. As we start to lift up off the mat again, think of moving as slowly as you can through the spine. Almost like you're peeling the back up off the mat, finding your full expression, pausing for a breath cycle at the top. And then as slowly as you lifted, gently placing the spine back down on the mat. We'll find that hip tilt one more time, pressing into the feet. The next time those hip points move up towards the ribs, peeling the back up off the mat, coming into your full expression of bridge, pausing for a breath at the top, and then slowly lowering back down towards the mat. Once you're back down on the mat, we're going to shift in any way that's comfortable for you to come up into table position, which is hands underneath you on the knees, tops of the feet are flat on the floor. And just imagine your weight is pretty evenly distributed between the knees, the feet, and the hands. We're going to find that same hip tilt, aiming to leave it just in the hips. So hip points are moving up towards the ribs and then gently away. Once you've found that hip tilt, the next time the hips come up towards the ribs, we're going to start to invite the rest of the back along. So curving into the low back, the mid back, between the shoulders, and then eventually letting the head fall into cat pose. From here, we're going to reverse the tilt in our hips to tilt the tail up towards the ceiling and then lowering towards the mat through the low back, the mid back, the shoulders, eventually lifting the head into cow pose. Pausing for a breath here, and then tilting the hips again. Hip points come up towards the ribs. We move through the low back, the mid back, the shoulders, letting the head fall, and then tilting the hip points away from the ribs, coming through the low back, the mid back, the shoulders, lifting the head. Again, we're aiming to move really slowly through the back, finding as much movement in each area of the spine as you can. Notice if one area moves more quickly than another, and aim to slow it down on your next round. We're coming down into cow here to finish by taking a breath, and then we're going to return to neutral table, setting up that even distribution again. Now that we're in table, we're going to bring again to mind that cylinder. So thinking of everything from just under the chin around the back of the neck, coming down both sides of the body, the front as well as the back, all the way to the pelvic floor. Once you've imagined that cylinder for a moment, we're going to think of that as stable and unmoving, and we're going to try lifting our right arm. Lower that back down. The aim here is to stay stable and let the limbs move around your stable cylinder. Lifting the left arm and lowering. Next, we're going to stabilize that cylinder and lift the right leg and then lower. Next up, the left leg. So you can continue here, just moving one limb at a time, aiming to find stability in your cylinder and moving the limbs around that stable core. And you can also bring this a step further by lifting opposite arm to opposite leg. So lifting right arm, left leg, moving until you find that that cylinder changes, and then returning to the beginning. Lifting left arm, right leg, and lowering back down. So the aim here is to not notice any changes in the cylinder, and if you move your arms so far that you do, returning to starting and trying to stay within that cylinder being stable and supportive. One more time, lifting right hand, left leg, and then we'll return back to our tabletop position. So these are just 3 short exercises that you can try. I've done 3 repetitions of each here. You can start there and extend your repetitions from there. The aim is to use these muscles in a stable and supportive way away from when we're sitting to help counterbalance the effects that sitting can have on the body. I hope this helps, and I hope to see you soon.